What you'll often find online is this idea that it's a grain of sand. It's important to understand that oysters are filter feeding organisms, and we've never found a grain of sand inside a natural pearl. We've tested thousands and thousands of natural pearls that we X-ray. We don't cut them up in two. And so the idea is that it's slightly different, the formation mechanism, that it's a injury to the mantle cells, and then it just leads to the formation of a natural pearl.
The pearls have always been associated with the concept of wealth. And with wealth comes power, because obviously if you showed someone a pearl, so if you could afford a pearl, you could afford means to prevaricate on someone else, to eliminate your enemy in a way. So I would say pearls have always been associated with power, with wealth and power consequently.
And a lot of famous pearls are actually quite old pearls. So Elizabeth Taylor's pearl, that she owned until 2011, La Peregrina, is actually a pearl that was found in the 16th century. So nearly 500 years old. It was still in pretty good condition and was then sold at auction in 2011 in New York for nearly $12 million.
Welcome to Luxury on Air, where we explore the trends, innovations, and personalities defining and redefining the luxury industry.
What if the most intriguing gem in luxury isn't mined from the earth, but created by life itself? Yes, we talk about pearls. They are delicate, organic, and mysterious. They are the only jewels born in the ocean. Already in ancient times, they symbolized ultimate wealth, adorned royalty, and lured traders across the seas. And in today's fast-paced engineering world, pearls feel almost subversive. A reminder that true luxury can't be built just overnight. But what does their formation teach us about time and value? What do they reveal about the future of luxury? My name is Felicitas Morhart, and this is Luxury on Air. Joining me on today's episode are Dr. Laurent Cartier, Head of Special Initiatives at the Swiss Gemological Institute, SSEF, and a widely reputed researcher on pearl farming and traceability at the University of Lausanne. And Milena Lazazzera, distinguished journalist whose work appears in the New York Times, Financial Times, and Vogue. Milena has built her career exploring the fascinating connections between jewelry, history, and the arts. Milena, Laurent, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Thanks for the invitation. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this conversation with you two pearl experts who exquisitely complement each other. You have already had your performances together on stages. Together, we're going to look at pearls from many different angles, spanning research, history, marketing, and of course, consumer culture. And I would like to start with you, Laurent. Maybe a little bit unconventional. I would like to ask you, how did you become interested in pearls? And what do you do at the Swiss Gemological Institute?
Well, thank you very much for the question. Pearls have long fascinated me. I've actually been quite interested in diving for about 20 years. I started as an earth scientist looking at minerals and gemstones. And pearls are curious in that they are mineral, but they're formed by animals. So it's really this very interesting combination between the two. And so I ended up doing my PhD because I also quite like the Pacific and destinations such as Tahiti and Fiji and Micronesia. I spent quite a bit of time there doing field work on trying to understand how we could improve pearl farming practices and how that could contribute to conservation and sustainability measures, both in the Pacific, but also in the wider pearl industry. And I just, it was like a rabbit hole I went down. I just became more and more interested in that. Did my PhD, and it was also linked to the work that I do at SSCF, which is a gem testing institute. And we also test many of the world's most valuable natural pearls. So a lot of that work kind of flows into how pearls form. And pearls have been around for thousands of years, and we're still learning new things every day.
So you really turned your passion, intrinsic interest into your job. Oh, what a dream. Mm-hmm. Wow. So can you explain a little bit more what the SSEF in general does? It's not only looking at pearls, right?
No, so we're a Swiss foundation that was founded in 1972, Schweizerische Stiftung für Edelsteinforschung, so the Swiss Foundation for the Research of Gemstones. And we have three pillars. One is testing gemstones, pearls and jewelry and diamonds for the trade. also teaching and then research. And the ultimate aim is actually to instill consumer confidence and maintain that. So we need neutral, just as with universities, we need neutral institutions that can give people information on what it is they're buying and selling. And that is what maintains the confidence in the trade. And that can only be done if you have sound scientific foundations and researchers in-house who can, be up to date on all the funny things that are happening as well in this industry.
So you're absolutely the right person to educate us about pearls. And that leads me already to the very first question, because pearls belong to gemstones, right? Otherwise, it wouldn't be your job at the SSEF. But it is not a regular gemstone. I mean, everyone knows what a pearl is, but not everyone knows what exactly a pearl is. Can you explain to us?
Okay, so for thousands of years, humans have actually collected pearls, and Milena will talk about that later on. They've been one of the oldest gems known to man or to humanity. And those were always pearls that were found in natural wild oysters. So they're called natural pearls. And then for centuries and centuries, entrepreneurs and scientists tried to figure out how is it that an oyster forms a pearl? Because they were so valuable, well, there would be a business model in trying to cultivate a cultured pearl. And Mikimoto was one of the first to discover how to do that at the beginning of the 20th century and to then really market that. And so there is a before 1910s and after 1910. Before that, there were only natural pearls that were accidental formations in wild oysters. And after that, most of what you see in jewelry stores in Switzerland and Europe or elsewhere are actually cultured pearls. And the last category are imitation pearls. So these might be pearls, so to say, that you find in H&M or Zara, or even Chanel does both imitation pearls, but then also cultured pearls. They look like pearls, but they're not actually formed by an oyster. So those are the three categories. And our work in the lab is actually to be able to say, is it a natural pearl coming from a wild oyster, which is much rarer, a cultured pearl, or an imitation pearl?
Mm-hmm. And where do you find those natural pearls?
So most of the natural pearls that are in the market today would be coming from old stocks, which means that when, somebody passes away or there's a divorce or something happens, these pearls have been carefully stored, so they're not just thrown away, they're sold again. And so a lot of pearls come from the estate market, from the secondary market, from auctions. And a lot of famous pearls are actually quite old pearls. So Elizabeth Taylor's pearl that she owned until 2011, La Peregrina, is actually a pearl that was found in the 16th century. So nearly 500 years old. It was still in pretty good condition and was then sold at auction in 2011 in New York for nearly $12 million. So that's how most of it is happening, or how sourcing of natural pearl happens. There's a few areas in the world, in Indonesia and Mexico and Australia, where per year a few natural pearls get found, but most of the stocks are old stocks.
Mm-hmm. And the main countries for cultivating pearls?
So for cultivating pearls, we distinguish between marine cultured pearls and freshwater cultured pearls. For the marine ones that come from oceans, it would be Akoya, which is what Mikimoto came up with. So these are coming from Japan, China, Vietnam. Then we have so-called South Sea cultured pearls. They come from Indonesia, Burma, Philippines, Australia. And then we have the Tahitian cultured pearls coming from French Polynesia. And then we have the freshwater cultured pearls, which are actually huge volumes that China has brought on the market since about the 1980s.
Mm-hmm. Okay, going back a little bit to the research part, what does a pearl consist of, and how does it actually develop, or how does it grow?
So how it grows, what you'll often find online is this idea that it's a grain of sand. It's important to understand that oysters are filter-feeding organisms, so they filter water and they take plankton from it. So they're used to having lots of sand where they live. And we've never found a grain of sand inside a natural pearl. We've tested thousands and thousands of natural pearls that we X-ray. We don't cut them up in two. Never seen a grain of sand in there. And so the idea is that it's slightly for the formation mechanism, that it's a injury to the mantle cells. These are mantle cells that the oyster has so that the oyster shell can grow, much like we humans have cells that have one role in life, which is to create or produce bone. And these cells, the oyster would somehow be injured. It could be a little crab that comes in or another form of injury. These cells are displaced, and they just continue to produce the calcium carbonate, which is the nacre or the mother of pearl of which the shell consists. And then it just leads to the formation of a natural pearl. And that's what we do when we produce cultured pearls, is we take cells that are programmed to produce mother of pearl, and we put them into the other part of another oyster, and they just continue to produce this mother of pearl. And that's how we have the formation. So they're mineral, even though they formed in a living organism.
Wow, that's fascinating. And you debunked already the first myth here. Thank you so much. Let me now move to Milena. We have heard that pearls have fascinated humanity already since a very long time. So can you tell us a little bit more about the history of pearl jewelry?
Yes, absolutely. So pearls are the world's oldest gem, and it's easy to understand why. Unlike other gemstones, they don't need to be cut or polished. They emerge from the oyster already perfectly round, luminous, white. They're ready to be worn. Obviously, not all pearls in truth are white or perfectly round, but the idea is that as soon as you open an oyster, you can see a pearl, and it's already a piece of jewelry. So it's, in a way, it's nature's own finished jewel, and is the only one, really. So we know that pearls were already in use in Egypt as early as the 4th millennium BC. Then we had in the 4th century BC, there were Alexander the Great went, we know, to the east, and he was the first to open up the trade for pearls, because pearls were already in use in Asia. They were already prestigious, but they were not so popular or commonplace in the West. And it was really thanks to him, to Alexander the Great, that the very first proper pearl trade started. But pearls have fascinated every culture. I think this is quite interesting about pearls. They are not only ancient, but they have fascinated everyone, basically, not only people in Asia or Europe, but also in South America. We know, for instance, that pearls were mentioned in the Indian Mahabharata, so this epic, Hinduist epic, and pearls were used by the Mughals Mughal emperors as well. So, for instance, the longest strand of pearls was always reserved for the heir of the family, basically. We also see pearls in the Bible, and the term pearl was used as a synonym of supreme value, but also beauty. And later, pearls were associated with the purity of the Virgin Mary. So they've always been able to fascinate people, and people have not only seen pearls as something precious, rare, and beautiful, but also with something very symbolic as well. Mm-hmm. I would say that there are 3 main periods in history when pearls were really popular. So the first one is the Greco-Roman era, when the Romans were so obsessed with pearls that there were even laws, some laws were passed to regulate who could wear them and when and where pearls could be worn. So this period is between the 200 BC until 400 Common Era. And then there is the Renaissance. I would say that the Renaissance is really the golden age of pearls, because it is when also Columbus discovered America, and new pearls came from South America. So there was there were new pearls coming to Europe. There was a fascination with pearls. So we see also the aristocracy of the people who were rich merchants posing for portraits, and they were wearing pearls everywhere, necklaces, pearls stitched to their clothing. And and so basically Spain became rich at that time precisely thanks to all the pearls coming from the New World. Then there is another period when pearls were particularly popular, and it is the so-called Gilded Age. So it's like between 1890 and 1910. So end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century. So pearls were really, we see them on people, on the aristocracy, on rich people, even in the United States. There is a new aristocracy in the United States that's being formed in that period. We have the so-called dollar princesses, and they were wearing pearls as well. After that, yes, we know that there are the cultured pearls from Mikimoto, and things changed a little bit.
Mm-hmm. And we're gonna come to this change later on. So it's fascinating to learn about this and the changes of the meaning of pearls. Maybe one follow-up question on that, because you said it comes with quite some symbolic meaning. So did through these different eras the meaning of pearls change too?
Yes. So I would say since the very beginning, pearls have always been very rare. So they were not mined, they were found. So even the fact that you just find a pearl, so it was seen as a miracle. And so I would say that since they were very rare, they've always been very expensive. That's why the Romans wanted to regulate the trade of pearl. They wanted to regulate who could wear them, because the Romans were obsessed with morals, that they didn't want to see people becoming so interested in luxury goods that they would not care about discipline or hard work. But that's another story. So basically, I would say the pearls have always been associated with the concept of wealth. And with wealth comes power, because obviously if you showed someone a pearl, so if you could afford a pearl, you could afford means to prevaricate on someone else, to eliminate your enemy in a way. So I would say pearls have always been associated with power, with wealth and power, consequently. Then I would say that in the Renaissance, there was this concept of pearls being associated with purity. So there is this Christian tradition that associates pearls with the Virgin Mary. And we also see that pearls are associated with beauty as well. So, for instance, we see paintings of Botticelli in which Venus emerges from an oyster, just like a pearl. So, pearl is as a synonym of beauty, as a synonym of everything that is good, and also so it's associated with Venus, so the goddess of beauty. And likewise, I would say in the 19th century and the 20th century, especially in the Gilded Age, and especially in America, sort of in the New World, wearing pearls meant not only that you had wealth, that you had power, but you also had a kind of sophistication to understand that pearls, although they do not shine, they are something that show an erudite taste, that you are somehow also intellectual superior in a way. So you are well read, and that you have good taste as well. So I would say that the meaning has changed, and the meaning has also changed now, because as I said, we were talking about Mikimoto and the cultured pearls. So when the market was flooded with cultured pearls, and pearls became a little bit commonplace, they were adopted by the middle class. And I would say that the upper class sort of distanced itself from wearing pearls. So they preferred wearing diamonds or other gems. And so for a long time, they were seen sort of as middle class, or sort of the jeweler, sort of the kind of gems a grandmother would wear, but not young people. But now things are completely different, because new designers have interpreted pearls in a different way. They've set them in very imaginative design. And so we see now that pearls somehow symbolize empowerment. They symbolize rebellion. And so this is quite of an interesting shift because it's really young people wearing pearls. And we see also a lot of young designers being really focused on pearls and pearl jewelry. So this is quite interesting, I think.
Absolutely. And I would love to dive deeper into that a little bit later on, but we see already that that pearls come back. They have several revivals already. I also would like to try whether you can debunk a myth or tell us that it's true. There is this legend that Cleopatra actually showed her power in an ultimate act of decadence by dissolving pearls in vinegar and drinking that vinegar. Is that true? Is that documented?
Apparently, there's Pliny the Elder who writes about it. And so it was really to impress Caesar, to show that she was so wealthy and so powerful that she wouldn't, she wouldn't shy away from destroying a pearl, because obviously the pearls were extremely rare, extremely expensive. And if you show your guest that you're willing to destroy something like that, to destroy a pearl, something so precious, so rare, you're really showing that you have a lot of power, that you really are someone to be feared, perhaps. And that was the message that Cleopatra wanted to convey to the Romans. So don't mess up with me. I'm doing this sort of things. Yeah. And also, I just wanted to say, since we are talking about myths, the myth that a pearl comes from a grain of sand, I just wanted to say that it's a beautiful image, and it comes from a novella written by John Steinbeck. And this novella is absolutely beautiful. It's called The Pearl. And it talks about a pearl trade in South America. And it is in this novella that John Steinbeck describes the magic of pearl being formed around a grain of sand. So this myth that everyone thinks that a pearl is formed around a grain of sand comes from that novella. So
very enlightening. Thank you. Laurent, you wanted to add something.
Yeah, just about Cleopatra. So, I mean, the wine would have to be very acidic. So there are paintings that depict this banquet, this dinner where Cleopatra was really showing off her wealth, her power, maybe her rebellious, side by just showing that she could destroy this. It would have to be very acidic vinegar, actually, and not so much wine for it to really work. But I think, as with many paintings and kind of ancient myths, there is this mythological element, a symbolic element to show how much power was linked to that. And I think that's really interesting. What, Milena said, or what I've also seen, is that pearls are actually present on all continents. All cultures have somehow collected pearls. Genghis Khan also was a very big collector of pearls, even though they were very, very far away from the Mongol Empire, was very far away from the source of pearls. So it's really interesting. It must be somehow ingrained in just human psychology, or there must be a deeper link that humans have with pearls. I don't want to get too spiritual here, but it's just from all the research and all the encounters I've come across. It's so fascinating. And so when you get these articles that say pearls are back in fashion, I think pearls have never been out of fashion. As Milena says, there are cycles and there are symbols, but you could probably attach most symbols to a pearl in some place around the world. And that's the beauty of it, I think, research-wise, is that it never gets boring. There's always new stories to discover.
Yeah, it's incredibly interesting already until now. What I have seen and understood so far, though, is that there is quite a lot of different quality levels around. And that brings me back to you, Laurent, and your capacity to evaluate the value and the quality of gemstones. How do you do that for pearls? Is there anything like a grading scheme like there is for natural diamonds?
Yeah, so the value is something that traders assign a value to a pearl or gemstone or a diamond. That is not the work of a gemologist or a gem lab. We're independent in that we would confirm whether a pearl is natural. So is it an accidental formation that, from a wild oyster? Is it fresh water or is it salt water? Has it been treated or not? Is it an imitation? And based on that, then traders with that information will then, agree on a price. And natural diamonds have a clear grading system, the 4 Cs, which also means that there are price lists for natural diamonds, colorless ones. Fancy colored diamonds are quite a bit more complex. But this means that there's a bit of a commodification that has also taken place in diamonds, which some people feel, that it's taken away a bit of the luxury aspect of it, because they're no longer each diamond a work of art, but they're more like a commodity, and you can have an algorithm that may be able to come up with a price. For pearls, that's not the case. And that's frustrating for some who would just like a clear, transparent price. And for others, they feel like there's just too many factors that come into play. Yes, we can describe the color, we can describe the quality, the nacre thickness, but based on price, based on that to come up with a formula of price is very, very difficult. So there's no kind of widely accepted grading system for cultured pearls or natural pearls that then you go into an Excel table and it tells you the price.
All right. So that also means that as a professional, you really have to have negotiation skills, and there is no objective reference, right? You really can come out with very different prices depending on what is important to you.
So let's say for cultured pearls, because there's a lot more on the market, it might be a little bit easier because you can go and see different traders, you can check online, you can get ideas of prices. For natural pearls and for just very rare ones that might be, drop-shaped one, or if there's then some provenance, be it Elizabeth Taylor or Marie Antoinette or whatever, this is then in the realm of the world of art, where how do you put a price on a painting? It's really, it's not to say that we shouldn't grade these objects, but it's just, it becomes very difficult. And ultimately it comes down to where buyer and seller meet. I think a lot of people also talk about investment, jewelry, diamonds, pearls. They're still emotional purchases. They're not investment vehicles. And so that's kind of what it comes down to for pearls as well.
And that would probably makes it also very luxury, right? Because it's such an immaterial value that comes with it, such an emotional value, as you say, which is the beauty of luxury, right? That is very hard to quantify. It's just a stream that comes with it.
Yeah, and at the same time, it's not something that is to dupe the consumer or the end consumer or the collector. It's just a reality that it's important for the trade and jewelers to really educate, collectors and consumers so that they can just get a better feeling for what a beautiful pearl is and if that pearl speaks to them.
Mm-hmm. And does sustainability come in there too? Because you are the co-founder also of the Sustainable Pearls Project. And I wonder, is that something that speaks also for the quality of a pearl? And what does sustainability mean in pearl farming anyways?
Yeah, good question. I mean, what does sustainability mean in general? It's just a term which has been far too often coined, and it's everywhere and nowhere at the same time. So for pearls or for pearl farming, essentially, a pearl oyster is a very sensitive organism. It needs to have very clean water, and it needs to be sheltered from, it has issues if the ocean gets too warm, too acidic, if there's pollution and many things. So there's really an interest that a pearl farmer has in protecting or maintaining the environment in its most pristine condition, because that will then also increase the likelihood of producing high quality cultured pearls. So that's this interesting link, and that's where in 2010 we founded this project, which was also part of my PhD, where we got money from the Tiffany and Company Foundation because they were also funding research projects that were looking at how, the conservation angle of things. How can we fund marine conservation? How can we protect coral reefs? And what's interesting about pearl farming is that essentially if the pearl farm is there and it's working well, it's kind of acting like a marine protected area. And it's paying people to work there. There's no fishing. They're really trying to maintain this very pristine environment with a very high value resource. Because that's the challenge with sustainability or conservation, is always the question, how do you fund it? So that's what this project was about trying to figure out how could we catalyze or how could we amplify this kind of win-win dynamic. The reality is that the market is quite fragmented. So yes, it is possible to buy traceable cultured pearls or buy direct from farms, or some farms have started their own jewelry lines. But a lot of the trade is still very fragmented. So the reality is it's not that easy to get traceable cultured pearls all the way from the farm to the end consumer, unfortunately.
Yeah, that would have been one of my next questions. Like, what about the traceability? Because still pearls are probably also way more diverse in their provenance on one piece of jewelry? Just thinking about a necklace, right? Do these pearls all come from the same place, or do they come from different places? And how do you know what happened to these pearls on the way to the necklace?
Well, the main criterion for jewelry for centuries has been, bring the best goods together, or bring the best gemstones and pearls that match best together on a necklace. And so the exact origin or the exact mine was not, in most cases, was not really the primary issue. Now it's changing, because now people are saying, okay, I'm buying a necklace with 50 pearls. Are they all sustainable? If you don't have traceability information, how can you make a comment about how that pearl was formed? And so that's where the industry is trying to play catch up on that, in developing systems to trace pearls individually, so that ultimately we can give more information to consumers. And the demand is there. I mean, surveys show that there is interest from consumers. It comes with associated costs. So the question is, who can or who wants to absorb that cost? I think ultimately, having also visited many pearl farms, really the beauty of traceability, or of being able to tell that authentic story, is, it's kind of like with whiskey, or really you think of every pearl farm as being like a unique whiskey distillery with its own story, its own environment, its own way of doing things, or winery. And I think that's the direction that we could be going into over the next few years. So it's no longer just tons of pearls that are being sold, but it's really kind of more artisan, luxury, unique pieces that are being made by these producers.
Yeah, I love this anecdote, this analogy. Milena, can you agree from the consumer side that people are aware of traceability when it comes to pearls, or let's say jewelry in itself?
Well, to be honest with you, how can I put this? I would say that certainly it's a topic that is very hot at the moment. People talk about traceability, sustainability, and all that. And it is also true that it's the young generations who care more about that, and they ask questions where some pieces of jewelry, some materials, metal, gold, and gems come from. However, for sure, this is a little bit overstated when it comes to purchasing luxury goods. Certain people ask questions, it's true, but I would say that the vast majority doesn't. They are very happy to know where a certain gem comes from, and they are very happy to know that it has been sourced in line with certain criteria. But at the end of the day, it is not really something that it can also block a sale, definitely. But in more cases than not, what we can really see is that people just fall in love with the dream. People buy jewelry because they need it. It's not something that people need. They buy jewelry because it's they fall in love with the beauty of it. And it's also the reason why pearls have always been popular, because you open an oyster and you see something beautiful, something so perfect. And obviously it captures your heart, and you don't really ask too many questions when you see something that really speaks to you immediately. So I would say that people buy jewelry and gems simply because they're beautiful, they speak to them. They buy also for investment purposes as well. So yes, I would say that certain considerations come a little bit later down the line. So I would say that it is really the beauty, the meaning, the investment value that drives people to buying jewelry.
Yeah.
But obviously, those considerations are much more important now than they were in, say, the 1930s or the 1920s, when people didn't ask any question at all. So now it's something that, people do ask. There are some people who ask questions, but not everyone does.
Mm-hmm.
It is too long.
Probably, I'm wondering, Milena, isn't the challenge also that when you're branding jewelry, you have to pack in so many messages into it, and you're selling a piece of jewelry, the information of which pearl farm the pearl, which comes with diamonds and gemstones and gold and whatever. There's so many things you have to, at the end, you kind of have to decide what are you going to give the consumer. You can't overwhelm the consumer with information either.
Yes, you're absolutely right. You need to choose the right message. And I would say that since jewelry is an emotional purchase, people would rather, a brand will rather play around the emotional significance of a piece of jewelry rather than a moral meaning of it or what it means for the environment. Because actually, the most sustainable thing for the environment is not buying anything, not producing anything, but obviously the next best thing is obviously to produce things in certain way according to certain criteria. So you're absolutely right. When a brand sells jewelry, it has to convey a message. And I would say that there are certain brands that have made sustainability a talking point. And obviously, they would definitely insist more on this kind of conversation. And it is the case also for lab-grown diamonds. Some brands have chosen to work exclusively with lab-grown diamonds, and they talk about certain reasons why they do that. So yes, I think it's a question of not overwhelming the consumers with too many messages. And obviously pearls, obviously it's important that there is an environmental message with pearls as well. But I would say that people are simply fascinated by what it represents, by its beauty. And nowadays also they are surprised by the inventive designs. Yes.
Mm-hmm. I think there is quite some interesting things to unpack here. And what I take away from both of you, Laurent and Milena, is that people, when they love something for the emotional aspect, they don't want to ask too many questions, maybe also because they do not really want to know everything, not to destroy their dream if it's too factual and too much about, maybe things that are not so beautiful. Maybe it's enough to just have consumers guilt-free, right? To tell them, look, this is done in the best way possible. You do not need to worry, and you can fully concentrate on the hedonic pleasure and the emotional experience that comes with this pearl. Is that something that you can agree with, or do we need more?
I think there's actually another dynamic that I've come across, especially in Switzerland, where there are a lot of goldsmiths, independent goldsmiths who also sell very valuable jewelry. People have told me that basically it's people where already their parents were going to see this goldsmith. And so there's so much trust in that person and how that person is working that they wouldn't even think of asking where the gems or where the pearls from, because that person is an artisan. And so that question just never pops up.
How interesting.
So I think there's probably this guilt-free aspect that you spoke about, but on another flip side, it's like maybe you just trust the person. And in some cases, obviously with some brands, you may read something in a newspaper and then you're like, oh, where did these things come from? But I think it's more complex than we assume it to be. Just like if you ask people, well, would you buy a more sustainable product? The majority of people would answer yes, but in the end, that's not what you're seeing in shops either.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with what Laurent said, because there is really a disconnect between what people say they care about and when they go out shopping and they have to open their purse and they have to, pay with money. And so things are completely different once you are in a shop.
Yeah, absolutely. There was another aspect, Milena, that you brought up, and I think, Laurent, you too, was about the brands. Right? That some brands work with sustainability, they put that forth. But thinking about branding itself in the pearl industry, are there any branded pearl companies or branded pearl jewelry providers?
There's Mikimoto for sure, because when Mikimoto started, then sort of culturing pearls and selling cultured pearls as well. So he was saying that his pearls were better than natural pearls, which, to be honest and to be fair, it was actually true, because Mikimoto was really able to produce perfect pearls. They were perfectly round, perfectly white, and all the pearls you find in nature naturally, they're not necessarily perfectly white and not necessarily perfectly round. So what Mikimoto was saying is that his product was superior. And part of the success of cultured pearls depends on the fact that actually cultured pearls were better and also more consistent in production than natural pearls. So Mikimoto also, in order to promote its own jewelry, in order to promote, that pearls, they started creating their own jewelry as well, because they would say, if I can show people that these pearls work perfectly well in jewelry, then people will buy my cultured pearls, because obviously you can imagine that there was huge resistance when cultured pearls flooded the market. The natural pearl traders were against him, and also jewelers who had agreements with traders in natural pearls were against Mikimoto as well. And also you need to understand that if suddenly the market is flooded with cultured pearls, what happens to your stock? What happens to the natural pearls you have in stock? They are losing value. And obviously, as a jeweler, you don't want that to happen. So in order to protect the value of the stock, they needed to find something that didn't work with cultured pearls. So obviously there was a lot of resistance, and Mikimoto and this resistance finally pushed Mikimoto to produce his own jewelry. And nowadays, cultured pearls are accepted, and even established brands use cultured pearls, and they say they specify if a pearl is natural, otherwise it's assumed it's cultured. So there has been this shift, 100%. At the moment, there are some brands that work exclusively with pearls. There's also Tasaki, and Tasaki is another Japanese brand. I would say that Tasaki has really been instrumental in experimenting with new designs, in new ways of wearing pearls. We have seen Tasaki has sliced pearls in half, which was something that had never been done before. Tasaki has also put pearls into golden cages, has mixed white pearls with black pearls. So Tasaki has been really creative with pearls. He has had lots of fun. There is also a Greek designer called Melanie Georgopoulos, and she also works with Tasaki as well, but she also creates her own jewelry, and she has always been fascinated with pearls, and she has been incredibly creative with pearls, and she has also worked with different kind of pearls. She's truly an artist when it comes to pearl jewelry. So yes, absolutely, there are certain association with pearls, and also I would say Coco Chanel, she has been also a champion of pearls. So there are certain brands that definitely associated with pearls more than other.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a very good idea to put some of them into the show notes to dive deeper into some of these brands. There is one more question about the consumers that I would like to pose to you. What I have realized is there are quite many men, for example, on the covers of fashion magazines or celebrities or people appearing on the screen or on social media, who wear white pearl necklaces, but men. What is that trend?
Well, I would say that men have always worn jewelry. I would say that they stopped wearing jewelry at the turn of the century. Yes, at the beginning of the 20th century, end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century, simply because clothing became less formal, and so the distinction between men and women was basically done through the accessories. So what kind of jewelry, what kind of handbags and all that. So, but men have always worn jewelry. And actually, if you go to India, you would see that men are still wearing jewelry and they're still expecting jewelry when they get married. So it's still in the tradition there. And as I said before, the Mughals were wearing jewelry and they were giving the longest strand of pearls to the heir of the family. And I would say that the fact that now men are wearing pearl jewelry again, and it is linked to this new meaning of pearls. Pearls have become a sort of symbol of rebellion, a symbol also of, I would say, soft power, or a symbol of showing that you are not afraid of showing your weak side. And I would say that a lot of men wearing jewelry, they're just showing that they are part of this trend. And also, simply, as I said before, pearls are simply beautiful, and men enjoy wearing them and accessorize themselves with them.
Yeah, thank you. Laurent, do you have a pearl necklace?
Yeah, I'm wearing one now. Right. Yeah. But I don't have a white pearl necklace with I think it's a baseball player who really hit the news with that a few years ago. He was wearing, for all his matches, he was wearing this nearly a choker of Akoya cultured pearls, white. So this was really, a few rappers also been wearing them and stuff. And it's like, I think as Milena says, there's something really kind of daring and rebellious in doing that. So there's just different ways of wearing them. But ultimately, you're right, Milena, it's just the beauty of the product. And I think it's more accepted, or people are willing, and men are more willing to just wear something more beautiful. Like I have friends who start wearing more brooches now again, even though that was a trend that had been lost for many decades. So I think it's nice to see.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot happening right now. Can you see other developments with young people about the meaning for pearls, or any interesting developments, maybe also looking into the future of pearls? Do you have some?
Yeah, so I think there's another kind of link, is that people do have an affinity to the natural environment as we get into this hyper digital age. And I don't want to read too much into that, but I think pearls is somewhere, just as gemstones are, kind of a connection to an older world, something that's a bit more, a geological time age for gemstones. But for pearls, there's a link to oceans or rivers. There's something where you feel a bit more grounded. So that's something that I've kind of come across, so that I feel that people want a link to the natural environment, and pearls are a pretty good symbol of that. So I think that could be a trend that might grow as well, even though I'm not selling pearls or I'm not a jewelry designer. But I think there's that. I think just also about kind of pearl branding, or what you asked before, what's nice to see is that there are some pearl farmers who have, over the last few decades, kind of developed their brands. So we have, for example, Paspaley in Australia, or Jewelmer in the Philippines. They also have a boutique in Palm Beach in Florida. There's a pearl farm that I worked with a lot called Kamoka. They've hit 1 million followers on Instagram. They got really big through TikTok by having all these underwater videos of how they farm their pearls and whatnot. And for many years, they were just hiding, and now they're much more visible. So they're definitely connecting also with younger audiences who really like this adventurous way of farming pearls, because you have to be really crazy to cultivate pearls. It's not that easy to make money with it, and you get cyclones and hurricanes and turtles that eat your oysters and whatnot. So maybe pearls also have an adventurous side that people are kind of becoming interested in. And then in terms of trends for the future, so one of the interesting things is just like we have synthetic diamonds or laboratory grown diamonds. In the near future, we could also see in vitro pearls. So it means that you're essentially, just like we have, in vitro meat, or meat in a petri dish, you could do that. But then how do you deal with that in marketing or branding terms? Whereas the romance of the pearl is probably, John Steinbeck, the pearl, this adventures thing, this opening an oyster, finding something, these coconut trees in French Polynesia, all that disappears. So I don't know. It's technologically possible. Would it work? I don't know. Is there a market for it, given that we've had imitation pearls for many centuries? It's interesting, but yeah, who knows where we're going with that? I think one of the challenges is definitely that with climate change and more acidic oceans, it's getting more difficult for oysters to grow. and it's also getting more difficult for oysters to form pearls. So I think that's a trend we need to be mindful of. Sustainability is not going to go away just because it's a buzzword, but it's also really deeply ingrained in will we still have pearl production in 50 or 100 years? So I don't know if that answers your question. I mean, there's many future developments we could look forward to. And because pearls have been around for at least 8,000 years, I'm sure there's still a very rich future with developments that we can't identify right now. And I'm sure there's still a few surprises in store for us.
We definitely need your research for that. So, Milena, do you have a view on the in vitro pearl topic and maybe some other vision for the future?
Oh, look, I made a note about this in vitro pearls. I need to talk to Laurent. It sounds super fascinating. For otherwise, I would say that, look, if we are talking about trends, what happens always with trends is that they come and go. As possible, I always wonder whether we have reached peak pearls because somehow for the last I would say 5 years, every time I see a picture, every time I see a fashion show, anything I see pearls there. So even last year, I think it was a Prada, we saw so many pearls, and we saw so many pearls at Armani as well. So I really thought perhaps we have reached peak pearls, but this year we are still seeing a lot of pearls. So I don't know whether we have reached the peak, and I don't know whether anytime soon pearls will be a little bit not trendy anymore, but at the moment they're still going strong, and it looks like we haven't seen everything what pearls can do in terms of designs and can do in terms of enriching people's outfits. So I'm here to see what's happening, and yes, so now the fashion shows. There's Fashion Week in Milan and there's Fashion Week in Paris. So let's see what's happening there. And I'm sure we will see a lot of pearls.
To a bright future of pearls.
Don't underestimate pearls. That might be a...
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
So let's take these as our closing words. It's incredible. Time has flown so fast. We're already at the end of our episode. And Laurent, Milena, I don't know how to thank you enough for this super educational and really, really deeply interesting conversation. I'm sure our listeners will now have a different look at pearls next time they visit a boutique for jewelry or when they even open the family's legacy jewelry box. Well, we wish you all the best for your next projects and researches. And I can only warmly recommend our listeners to also read into the work of Laurent and Milena. We're going to put some items into the show notes. And until very soon, stay tuned and take care, everyone.
Thank you for listening to Luxury on Air with Corinne Seghetti and Felicitas Morhart. This podcast is provided to you by Deloitte Switzerland and the Swiss Center for Luxury Research. If you've enjoyed this episode, you can leave us a 5-star review. If you're keen to stay up to date on what's trending in the luxury industry, don't forget to subscribe. As always, you can find more information about the current episode in the show notes. We wish you all the best. Until next time.